Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have a wonderful guest today, and I say that often, but here's the meaning. Mia and I connected through mutual connections, and I always talk about, it's the relationships that bring people to us in all of our in all aspects of our lives. And Mia and I were connected through a mutual relationship, and I had the pleasure of truly getting to know her. Mia Hewett is a master business coach. She is known for healing trauma. She's known for developing businesses to 6 and 7 figures. But more than that, Mia has gotten what it's like to be incredibly successful and not content. And I think, Mia today, I would love to welcome Mia Hewett. I'm excited to talk and see about your transformation. And I know many people out there in the universe today are saying, do I love what I do? And those of us who do, and we're both fortunate to, are thriving and soaring. It doesn't matter what else is going on in the universe. We take it all in and build from it. And then there's others that are saying, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And thinking about what is possible for them. So Mia Hewett, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have so much fun together.
So share with me a little bit. You had a major insurance company, Boston, so let's give some points of reference for our listeners all over the globe. Boston, Massachusetts is where you were raising your family. You built a major insurance company.
Actually, I'm in Boston now, but I built that insurance company in South Florida. So I'm actually from South Florida. I'm not a Bostonian at heart, but I am definitely a people person at heart, right? I can say that for sure. But I built I co-owned and built a multi-million-dollar insurance company. And I totally know what that feels like for anyone who is not didn't love what they're doing and is really questioning themselves right now, going what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And is this what I really want in my life? Because for myself, I didn't have a pandemic to have me question that, but it was something very similar. I in the sense of anytime we go through something that feels so traumatic for me, and for me, it was a divorce, but I literally was questioning everything that I was doing. And I really saw that the whole reason I had even gotten into the, co-owning an insurance company is I was coming from complete survival. I was really chasing money. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I grew up poor. And so I just was what is it that what could I do that people would always have to buy?
So it was what's sustainable? What's sustainable out there?
Exactly. And I was always coming from how am I going to survive? How am I going to survive? Everything, every day I was surviving. And I just didn't understand how to do it any differently. And then I became hugely successful. And what was a turning point for me beyond the, inside of the divorce and inside of really questioning, what am I doing and why am I doing this? I didn't understand that how I could be so wealthy and still feel completely inadequate, still doubt myself, still question my abilities. I mean, I had built this successful company and I'm still going but tomorrow I could fail, right? Tomorrow it's not going to work, right? This constant doubt was plaguing me everywhere. And that drove me nuts.
And it's, I have to say, because, when two souls meet and it's as if we had this, we were introduced and I was oh yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, been there, done that. And no, I'm not divorced. Yet I had spent 20 years in a printing industry. And I had this rude awakening in April of 2007, and April is my birthday month, of saying, oh my gosh, I'm not going to die a printer. I was meant for so much more.
Exactly.
There's so much more to me. I was meant for
Mhm.
much more. I have no idea what that looks like or how I'm going
Yep.
to get there.
Yep.
But I knew, I woke up and I said, I am not going to die a printer.
Yep.
And it had nothing to do with printing.
No,
It
that's
has nothing.
exactly what I felt. I felt like I'm not going to die somebody who just did insurance. Like I just didn't want to do, like, it was just literally that exactly moment, like what you're saying. Like there has to be more to my life than this. Because, and I started like secretly smoking, and and I'm a very active person. I ran like the top 7 marathons in the world, but I literally started like just really collapsing, like inside. I just felt like a total failure. And everybody looked on the outside at me as like, oh my God, you're so successful. So I also felt really alone, like nobody got what I'm saying. Because anytime I would feel like if I little bit wanted to express that, people would be like, what are you talking about? Like, you have everything. And then I felt guilty for even like voicing it. So I felt like I had to like just suffer through it. And then the turning point was my divorce, when I was like, okay, I'm divorced. Like, this is not what I want. We didn't live together for the last 7 years of our lives. So he lived in a totally different place. And I just finally said, this is ridiculous. I'm running marathons because I'm running away from something, and I just need to face it. And so I started facing myself. That was like the biggest like challenge of facing myself. I feel like the hardest lesson for me to learn was that there was nothing in the world that was actually happening to me, that it was all of my own choosing. And it took me really looking at that, to really looking deep in my soul and going, all of this you're choosing. And like when I really was willing to just face that and go, okay, I'm choosing this, even if I don't know how, or I don't know how I got here, or I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm just going to start saying, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing this. And then I started realizing like, wow, why am I choosing this? And then I got curious. And then that's when I really made huge discoveries and huge movement, right? I'm sure you felt the same, right? I mean,
It's very interesting. And
yeah.
we had chatted about 2020 being the year of evolution,
Yes.
or the year of the next evolution.
Yes.
And as opposed to, and we both chose to look at this year as what is going to develop from here, and the excitement as opposed to the sadness. And that's not disrespecting the sadness, because it's
No.
there. And when I went through my transformation, it was not disrespecting what I had built,
Sure.
but it was embracing where I was going. And there was
Yeah.
fear in there, like there is fear today.
Yes.
There is fear of the unknown. You know
Yes.
what? I remember for me, taking my daughter to Disney World as a little girl.
Yeah.
And you referenced South Florida, so it came to mind. And she was terrified to go into It's a Small World because it was dark.
Mm.
But once you got in, it's magical.
Yep. Yep.
And that is part of a transformation.
Totally. I feel like the biggest thing, like when it comes to what people are most afraid of. So at the very end of the day, like, right, and underneath every trauma, and that's the reason why I heal trauma, is because I didn't understand what I was missing. And that's what caused me to go into the business that I do now, like, and really helping entrepreneurs, or those that want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't know they don't know exactly, haven't clarified their purpose yet. They don't know what that would really fulfill them. And I always tell them it's because your trauma prevents you from seeing it. Once we actually heal the trauma, the way out, the way to that will give them the purpose that will feel life-giving becomes natural. So it's fascinating to me because for me, inside of the way that I got there is really, once I was able to face that and really look and see what it is, I went on a mission to try to find what I was missing. So I spent over $500,000 of my own coaching, my money, hiring the best and the best, and my own coach, trying to find somebody who's going to answer this question of what am I missing? And here was the most interesting thing to me. They didn't know, which was fascinating. I didn't understand that. I think the biggest thing that I really like when people ask me like, oh my gosh, what was the most shocking thing of what you went through? Like, what was the biggest? And it's because I really didn't realize that people didn't know. Like, they would reframe me. They would say, well, just think differently. Well, you see what, I went to therapy. It's like, oh, well, you see, you had this trauma when you were 5. Yeah, I know about that trauma, but what do I do with it? How do I get from knowing about it to doing something about it that it no longer runs my life? Because here's, at the end of the day, this is what I found. And this is my point on that, is that I didn't get how everything was emotional. Like, I thought it was in my mind, because my mind constantly had a negative voice, a little self-critic, always saying these things. So I kept thinking, oh, somebody's going to know in my mind, they're going to tell me how to stop this voice. But what I found in truth is it's actually it was an emotional issue. So based on when people have their first trauma, whatever that emotional experience is that happened to them, this is why it's not a one size fits all. It's everybody has their own unique trauma. And I'm going to clarify trauma here because most people misunderstand it. So when I'm saying trauma, we in society, we often think, well, I have to be severely molested or beaten in order to be considered a trauma. But the truth is, although those are traumas, it can be anything from extreme, what you would think is extreme, to something as you have a parent or sibling who's extremely moody and you have to walk on eggshells all the time, or you have a sibling that constantly berates you, or you have a grandmother who tells you you're undeserving of something, or you have like something. It can be what we would say in the days of our lives, well, that's just ridiculous. That can't be stopping me today. That happened when I was 4 or when I was 5. But here's how we connect it. This is what I'm wanting to give everybody, because this is the most important thing that I could tell anybody who always feels like something's missing or something's stopping them from going forward. Because when people will often say, well, Mia, it's because I am afraid of failure. No, you're not. Nobody's actually afraid of failure. What people are really afraid of is what people will think about them when they fail. The judgment.
Hold on, because that's a huge thing that you're saying.
Yes.
It's not about being afraid of failure. It's about how we're perceived, how people are going to look at us if and when we fail.
100%.
And it's golden because we all fail.
We all fail
numerous times over many, many things. And we're going to, guess what? We're going to all fail again, listeners. You're going to fall down.
Yes. I would, for me, the way that I don't look at failure as failure. I look at, how do I succeed at failure? See, if I can know the rules on how to succeed at failure, then failure never, ever stops me. And again, it's not about the failure. It's about how they're going to perceive me. The judgment is what we're afraid of. But let's just give 3 steps for somebody to really succeed at failure, right? Because I love the practical that you love. So a practical about this would be, okay, step 1. Right, you've had something happen right now. You didn't know it was going to happen like that. You feel like a failure. You feel like people are judging you. The first step, acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. What am I making this mean? What am I making it mean about how people are perceiving me right now? Like, write it down, right? And then once you get it out, right, I want you to really look at it. And the second thing I want you to do is step 2. What did you learn from this? Like, what's the gift? What is the gift about whatever it is that you're making it mean? What's the truth and what's the lie? Right? Because oftentimes the lie is really what keeps it in place, like what keeps us afraid of it and then not processing the emotions that we really feel. That's what causes us to be stopped and procrastinate and not take action. Because once we process this, you're going to go right back into alignment and being who you are. And that's where that's when you're the most effective. That's when you're in your power. So the first step is acknowledge. What are you making this mean? Whose judgment are you really afraid of? Who is that specifically? What's the worst thing they could say to you? What's the truth about that? And what's the lie? And then what's the gift? Number two, like, what's the gift? And then number three, once you can get the gift and you can process what the lie was, and it's like, oh, then the third thing is you can go, okay, now how am I going to adjust or implement this? Now that I know, like, let's say the example of that is, I just had a client and her biggest concern was, and this happened to her when she was like 5, where her grandmother actually said to her, she wanted Kool-Aid. And there was a lot of kids and so forth, and they were poor, and they would work in the fields, right? She has one of 6 kids, and they would work in the fields. And the grandmother said to her, you don't know, you don't deserve to have Kool-Aid. Your mom hasn't paid me enough money, because her mother had to pay her money for them to stay there. Your mother hasn't paid me enough money. You need to go outside and drink from the water from the hose. Her grandmother really said this to her. So she's like a top attorney, best in the class, but she always feels not good enough because she hears her grandmother's voice every single time, right? So when she could clear this misunderstanding and she could clear the lie, like, what's the lie? Like, what is the lie about you not being deserving? What's the lie about that? Like, if you don't win this next thing, or you don't do that, what's the lie that would make you undeserving? And when she could see the truth that her deserving had nothing to do with her, a bit like what she produced in life, like they're two separate things. Like when she could really own who she is as deserving as a child of God without ever doing anything, just being her, and then she could choose to do what she wanted. It gave her this extreme power of knowing, like, yeah, but she just had never slowed down enough to separate it out and see the gift and the truth and the lie, and then now implement from her being worthy. And it changed her life. She produced the results, what she just recently produced, because she had no attachment to the outcome. She was just doing it because it felt good to do. Makes sense?
It does. So I'd love to touch on for a moment here.
Yeah.
So in your own transformation,
Sure.
let's give our listeners a bit of the visual. So you had a major insurance company, you were in South Florida, successful. You knew you weren't fulfilled, and you reached to go to the outside for them to give you the answers.
Yes.
And not uncommon. It's like, okay, I'll keep dialing for dollars until I could find somebody who gives me the solution in a perfectly wrapped box.
Yes.
So I could just move on.
Yes.
How did you go from that point into being a incredibly successful coach, mentor, thought leader in the industry, author now, speaker? Share a little bit. Like,
I love that question.
Missing crater hole.
No, I love that question. I had a huge failure. So what everybody would call a huge failure, right? Like, and which actually produced my greatest success in hindsight. So my biggest failure was I had hired this best-selling, huge in the personal development world, best-selling author, paid him $50,000 to coach me, to figure out what I was missing. And I'm very coachable. Like, I did exactly what he said. So it's not like I'm one of those that resist coaching, but I did everything he said, and I wasn't getting the results. And I just couldn't understand, like, what I was still missing. And I remember going to him and I said, I don't get it. Like, what do you think I'm missing? And I'll never forget it. And he said to me, Mia, you just need to go in your room and you need to lock the door and not come out until you figure this out. And this is when I lost it. I was like, I didn't need to pay you $50,000 to tell me that. I could have just done that on my own. Like, you don't forget how much money is. Like, I grew up poor. It doesn't mean I didn't value money. And so I just was livid. And it was here, I first went through embarrassment and shame. Here's the steps, what I did, right? Because I was embarrassed. I felt completely judged, he totally shamed me. He totally went into this whole thing of and I'm laughing in hindsight because I'm sure he didn't know what else the heck to do with me. But that experience of shame and embarrassment, which was what I was trying to survive my life to never feel again. This is the irony, Ivy. The very thing I don't want to have happen to me is the very thing that happened to me by somebody very famous. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I could not have written this more, right? So here I am, and then I literally have to dust off my wounds, put on my big girl panties, and I was like, literally like, okay, what are you doing with this, Mia? Like, this guy doesn't want to work with you anymore. He's telling you to just go in your room, lock the door. Like, what the heck are you doing? And I literally I became obsessed. I literally became obsessed 24/7. I'm not an overnight success. It took me 6 years of really working through this process and understanding what really does stop me, what does stop other people, why are they getting stopped? How do we unstop them? But now I have it, and I have it down. I can do it in as short as 8 weeks. It takes me 8 weeks to take anyone who's been stuck, struggling for years, to unravel them and help them see the truth. So it is the craziest thing, isn't it? Because so here's where I'm going at, which is what I really feel. It's like that one piece of judgment, that judgment that we're so afraid of, when we can look it in the eye and really process it and detach from what it is that people think about us, whether they're judging us or praising us. I get people all the time praising me. Like, oh my God, your book changed my life. Your book changed my life. And although I absolutely love it, I'm not for a moment not appreciative. I don't make that mean anything about me. It means more to me about where they are consciously and what they are learning and where they are in their journey. And I'm so celebrating them, but I don't make it mean anything. So as I have a hater saying, like, oh my God, you're selling a book, you should give all your money away. You shouldn't be selling a book for $5.90 because if you're so wealthy, you should just give it all away. I have people who are like, your book changed my life. And, because of you now I've been able to be this successful. So none of it really, when we detach from that all, we experience the most amount of freedom that I would love to give anyone who wants it. It's like true freedom has never to do with money. It's not about time. It's not about time or money. It's true freedom is really about knowing how to emotionally and mentally free yourself. There's no greater freedom.
And when we are free and when we feel, the world is our oyster.
Yes.
We can create anything, you can have anything and do anything. And we are living through an unknown. And when we truly are centered and aligned, as you discussed that, we have the ability to take this and serve others, be there, grow, lead.
Absolutely.
So what drove you to write Meant for More?
That's what all of my clients would say. And I felt that way, but they just gave it a voice. Like they would all say to me, I just know that I'm meant for so much more. Like I know that there's so much more I'm capable of, but I don't know what I'm missing. I've heard that 1,000 times, for sure. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to write the book that I wish somebody would get. I mean, I'm 52. So I wish the book I wrote was the book I wish somebody had given to me when I was in my 20s. That's the book I wrote. I wanted, just give me everything that is the truth. Just tell me the truth. I can be with it. And then the truth will set you free. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote the book that says it's all about the truth about everything, that I wish, how life really works, not the way people think it works. How we work as a human being, like understanding we have a mental, emotional, and then a physical component, right? We can have a spiritual component as well, of course, but the mental and the emotional and the physical, how when we, all of those work together in unison, we are our greatest power. Every single human being has that, right?
Absolutely. So how have you navigated this point in your life? Your kids are adults.
Yes.
how do they feel about mom and what she's doing now and being an author? Both of us have been working moms a long time. I've got
Yeah.
a few years ahead of you.
Yeah.
But both been working moms a long time and had our kids maybe not understand the process we went through at the
Yeah.
time,
Sure.
but have been part of it because they were in our lives.
100%.
So how do you see, the working moms of today, and also so
Yeah.
much of them that navigating with kids at home more than ever right now?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. Well, for mine, my kids are older. So my daughter is 25. She just turned 25. And then my son, I have a stepson that I call my son because I raised him since he was 5 years old. He's 35. So I have a 35 and a 25. And really what I did was I went back to them. This is years ago. I went back to them and I said to them, what do I need to apologize to you for? I just asked them because I didn't know what their experiences was like. I was going through my own experience through it all. So I just asked them, what do you need what do you need to hear from me that really acknowledges what you went through during my not understanding what I was doing and trying, like what was that for you? What I got the impact on them. I asked them, what was the impact on you? Like, how was this for you? And then I said, what do you need me to apologize for? And it was fascinating. It was so eye-opening to hear their side of how their experience of it, right? But that's what really liberated. I mean, I have an incredible relationship with both my kids, and they don't need me because of the way I raised them. They're so independent. Like my daughter just graduated biochem degree. She's before this whole coronavirus, she's already interviewed at Yale and Stanford and BU. And so she's already done all she's just waiting for the finals and who she wants to choose. So she's going into medical school. And my son runs the insurance company that I used to be a part of, right? So he runs that now with his dad. So I'm no longer involved in that one. But yeah, they're doing amazing. They're amazing kids. They're like, I still call them kids. They're like older. They'll always be my kids.
They'll always be our kids.
Right?
Our kids are our kids are our kids.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're just independent. Like,
it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, they're really just thriving. Like they're doing amazing things, even, like inside of all of this. My daughter did a huge fundraiser to support all the frontline workers with masks at a hospital that didn't have enough. So she just did a huge fundraiser that I supported her efforts in. She's just a go-getter. So I admire her journey. I feel like for me, I think for my kids, one thing that when I was younger, that I really took to heart is there is Khalil Gibran said this, the poet, the famous poet said, your children are not your children. They come through you, but they are not from you. I took that really, really literal. I think that if somebody asked, like, how did you raise your children? I literally took that so literal that I was always like, I'm just here to support you in your journey, but you're on your own journey here. And I'm just here to, help you in the best that I can, know that you're loved. And no matter what you do, I'm always going to love you, but to help you critical think. I never told my kids, like, here's what to do. There's maybe a few things. Like, I did my daughter before she went to when she was in high school, I said, hey, what I need for you, before you go to college, colleges are big businesses. They make a lot of money off of kids don't know what they want to do. So here's what you need to do, because I'm not willing to pay. I'm not willing to pay for that. Here's what you need to do. You need to go shadow. So I had her shadow like what she thought she wanted to do, because and I know you know this, Ivy, we don't know what we clearly want until we know what we clearly don't want.
And there's a process of eliminations and a process of living. And never be disappointed in yourself that we have to go through this process and we have to identify. I spent 20 years in printing to say, I'm really successful and I don't want this.
That's right.
And that's okay.
That's totally it. Totally it.
So tell our listeners how they can find out more about you, stay in touch with you, and find out more about Men for More.
Absolutely. And we'll give them a link, right? Because the link is so long. I'm afraid they'll won't remember it all.
Everything, listeners, everything is in the show notes.
Okay.
Everything is in the show notes.
Okay, cool. Because it's a long link if we try to make them memorize it. But yes, Mia Hewett. So it's Hewett, not ITT. So ETT. And the link will give you, it's a free book just for you, just, a copy of my book. You'll need a password, which will be included down below so that you can get it. But yeah, you can just reach out to me. I'm the one who answers everything. People are always shocked. They're always shocked. I'm the one who does the clarity calls. People are like, you run this big of a company and you're the one that people get on the calls with. I'm the one answering all the social media. I have the VAs that post everything, but I'm the one talking to everybody. No one else talks for me. So people are always shocked about that. So that I'm so approachable, so easy to talk to. That anybody can reach out at any time, and I'm the one responding. So,
well, thank you for joining me here today, Mia. And listeners, you want to grab that book. You want to see how it resonates for you. I'm looking at 2020 as the year of evolution, and may we all evolve to our greatest beings and the greatest world we can come out of through here. Remember to hit subscribe, and we come into your inbox every Monday with new and dynamic episodes just like today. And leave us a note. Let us know your biggest takeaway from today's call. It's about what you're taking away and then the actions you're taking. That's why we're here to help. Mia, thanks again.
Yay!
Listeners, thank you for joining us, whether it was on your run, cleaning your house, we're commuting, who knows what we're doing each day right now. But wherever it is, thank you for joining us.
Approval anymore, 'cause I've got mine.